Let's be honest, the word SharePoint and the word fun rarely appear in the same sentence, but today we're going to change that. So in my last video, I showed you the escape room I built for the SharePoint Hackathon, which I actually ended up winning Best SharePoint Hack. No big deal, but actually to me it was because, let's face it, a lot of what I do on this channel is hack SharePoint, so that one meant a lot. So thank you, Microsoft. But how did I actually build it? So in this video, I'm going to take you behind the scenes and walk you through step by step how I built the escape room experience. So you can build something similar yourself to boost engagement, and you know, it might even be something that becomes an essential part of your adoption strategy. So for anyone who hasn't seen the previous video, let's do a very quick recap of what we built. So the Great Escape is a SharePoint-based escape room experience where players race against the clock to solve 3 unique puzzles across 3 themed levels. Players progress by solving the puzzle in each level, which unlocks the next level, which allows them to progress through the game. Completion time is tracked and players are ranked on a live leaderboard, so plenty of fun to be had by all. Now, I've been wrecking my brain to come up with the best approach to explain to you guys how I actually built this, and I think that it's best that we separate the functionality from the aesthetics. And to begin with, we'll start with the functionality, because I think that's probably going to be the most relevant to everybody. If you do want to build something similar, you'll see what the core principles are of this, and then you can style it and tweak it to suit your needs as you want. But after we do look at the functionality, I'll show you examples of how I built the themed sites or levels within my experience. Everything will be chaptered below, so feel free to jump around. This video is sponsored by me and Academy 365, which is a site where I have a number of courses that will take you from zero to absolute SharePoint hero. These courses are structured to guide you step by step on how to deliver the most common internet requirements I see day in and day out. Whether you're building a new intranet site or indeed need to uplift and revitalize an existing site, these courses are for you. And the best thing is you don't have to be a techie to take them, right? These courses have been carefully designed so they're accessible to anybody with any level of experience within SharePoint. We have the SharePoint Site Builder Masterclass version 2, which is an updated version of my original flagship course. This course guides you on how to create a typical internet department site step by step, jam-packed with the most common requirements I see from real-world experience. We also have the SharePoint Training and Education Platform Site course, which will show you how to create amazing educational experiences within SharePoint. Both courses are laser focused on end-user experience, so you'll be able to wow your users, your colleagues, and even your bosses. If you're interested, there's a link below along with a tasty discount. Now back to the video. So let's approach this by looking at, well, what are the requirements? What did we need to do in order to make the game possible? And there's really 4 main things. The first would be we need locations. So what I mean by that is we need a place to host. And for us in my game, well, I needed a place to have the main entry point to the game, the place that contains the leaderboard and is really going to help me manage the game. And then I need 3 additional locations, 1 for each level. Now for me, this ended up being 4 individual SharePoint sites. Now, like everything in SharePoint, there's probably about a million ways to do all this. This just happens to be the way I've done things, and you might even come up with better ways to do it, but all I can do is show you what I did. So 4 individual sites. Now we could of course contain this all within one site, and our levels could just be pages on the site. The reason I chose not to do that is I wanted to keep the architecture quite simple, and sites are the easiest way really when we're talking about different permissions to do everything at the site level. Another reason that I chose sites is that I wanted each level to have its own identity, and so really I wanted to have its own theme. And if they were all in the one site, that just wouldn't have been possible. So sites is what I chose. So 4 of them is what I came up with for the locations. Now, the next category of requirements is all about the game mechanics and submissions. So we need a way for people to submit answers on each levels for the puzzle within that level. And we need a way to automatically validate the answer on submission so that people don't submit it and then have to wait to find out if they got it right or not. If they do submit the right answer, then we need a place to store that answer. We need to record that, you know, the person, who they were, that they got it right, and then the time it took them to get it. And then we need a place to track the overall progress through the game for each individual user, and that'll happen within our leaderboard. Then we need to look at, well, how do we manage access through the level? So it is a game and it's based on progression. So we need a way to stage access to each level on a progression basis. And that's where we're going to talk about the use of groups and security groups in my case. And what that will also allow us to do is going to hide and show individual elements on various pages, so links and navigation and things like that, which only become visible to people when they've unlocked the appropriate levels. And then finally, well, we need to automate pretty much the whole game, because let's face it, you can't sit there and manually do all of this stuff and do all the calculations. It has to all happen automatically, seamlessly. So that's where PowerAutomate comes into the picture. So when we've solved for our locations, we have a way to track submissions and validate them and update a leaderboard. We have a way to provide access to the individual levels on a progression basis, and we can automate everything. That's essentially what this is. Everything else is just aesthetics, smoke and mirrors that sit around it. So now we know what it is we need to do. Let's look at a blueprint of the overall solution so we can dig in a little bit deeper. So looking at the blueprint I have here, this basically shows everything we need to build and how it's stitched together and works within the game. So I mentioned locations. Well, we have 4 sites here, okay? We have this main landing site here, which is this white box. Then we have our level 1 site, our level 2 site, and our level 3 site. And then we've all the stuff that works in around it. But let's focus on the landing site for now, because that really is the engine of this game and how everything works. The level sites, to be honest, there's not a whole lot to them, okay? They're really just a page in their own right. So looking at our landing site, we can see here that what we have on it, well, we have a landing page. That's a home page for our entire game. Very important page. Then we have a leaderboard page, and that's where people are going to experience the leaderboard. What sits underneath all of that is essentially 4 SharePoint lists. One is the leaderboard list, so that's where we actually do track the leaderboard. And the reason why we have a page is, well, we just embed a view of this list on the page, and that allows us to frame the list and, you know, give a bit of context to the leaderboard rather than sending people straight into a SharePoint list, well, which I typically don't really like to do. But then we have our level submission list. Now, they're very simple lists, but their job is to take the submissions from each level and store it, okay, so that we can kick off workflows that are going to update the leaderboard and provide access to the other levels. Each workflow will do that in its own right. And that's where we see we have our level 1 submission flow, level 2, level 3, and then updating the total time at the end of the game. Now, don't worry, we'll get into all of that in a few minutes. But for now, just know that this is what we need to build on our home site. Now, we can see here in terms of access, I've got these icons here. The yellow represents us as admins of the game and owners of the site. We obviously have access to everything. Our end users, right? You want to give them access to the landing page, because of course you have to. You want to give them access to the leaderboard page to get that gamification going and the competition. And then we also have to give them access to our leaderboard list, because in order to view the leaderboard, they need access to the underlying list. Okay, so that has to be done. But what we won't give them access to is our level 1, level 2, and level 3 submission list. So we're going to remove their access from those lists. And that's because people are submitting their answers to that list. So we don't want people being able to go there and just getting the answers. So we're going to keep them things private. For each of our submission lists, we'll use the new list form creation tool, whatever we call it. Basically, we're going to create a form for each list, which is going to allow people to submit to it without actually needing access to the list, which is just chef's kiss piece of functionality from Microsoft and SharePoint. So thank you. So that's effectively what we need to build on our site. Now, if you're going to do this for yourself and you want to have more levels, you'll just have to add additional lists, right? So the model is the model, right? You just expand it if you want to, or even reduce it. It's totally up to yourself. So let's go and have a look at the actual site and we can see this stuff in action. So on our Great Escape site, this is that landing page I was showing you. Well, let's go into site contents. So in site contents, we can see what's actually on this site. So we know our site pages, that's our landing page and our leaderboard page. So 2 pages, they live within here. We'll get to that a little later. And now we have our leaderboard list, level 1, level 2, and level 3 submission lists. Now these lists are all the same, but let's go in and have a look at them. So if we come into our level 1, basically what we have in here, it's basically stock, to be honest. We didn't do a whole lot to it. All I've done is I've added in an extra text column, which is going to contain the code that gets submitted. Straightforward enough, right? So create a new list and then just add in a new column, and it's going to be a text column. Now, when you add in the column, so I'll show you on this one, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to go to column settings, and I'm going to go to edit. We'll go to more options, and down here we have some validation. Okay, now it's actually probably handier to show you it working first, and then I'll show you how I did it, right? So forget you seeing that, right? So what we do is we have our forms, and I've created a form in here. So this form is effectively what we're going to show people on level 1 to submit their answer, and all we really want is this level 1 code, okay? Now that is related to this column. So when you create a new form, you're just basically going to hide everything else except level 1, because we just want that code submitted to us. So if I say send form and I copy the a link. I'll open it up in a new tab. This is what people effectively see when they're ready to submit their answer. Now I've added in validation, so people can only submit this if they've entered the right answer or the code word. If they enter in something that's wrong, it won't work. So spoiler alert, the answer to this level is gold, okay? But if someone was to type in, say, silver, and we click submit, we'll get a piece of validation that says incorrect. You've got to get the answer right, dummy. And then a little kissy face because we don't want to seem too, aggressive. So you can only get past this form if you enter in the right code word. And that's great, right? Because it means people can wreck their brains, they can inspect the puzzle, try and solve it, come up with all the answers, but they can't progress any further until they get it right. Brilliant. So how is that possible? So coming back over to our form, what you want to do, and this is handy to know just in general terms, right? But if you come into here and you go to column settings and edit, more options, we come down to validation. Now the code that I have in here to get it, so my code word was gold, but I don't really have control whether someone will spell it as gold all capitals, no capitals, or capitalize the first letter of the word. They might do all of them, okay? So what I wanted to do is put in a formula that says, well, I'll accept any of those, but the word has to be gold. So to do that, we put in our equal sign, and then we say or, because it's an or condition. It can be this or this or this. So I'm saying or is that. Code, well, that's the column name, okay? So when I first created this column, I called it code. So that's how I know that's the column name. So I say code equals gold, or code equals gold, all caps, or code equals gold, no caps. So that's basically a very simple formula, but lets me validate that people can only submit the right answer. Simple enough. And then the user message, if they don't get it right, is like we saw, incorrect, you got to get the answer right, dummy. So that's all you really have to do on that front. And now when people submit, get the answer right, and it comes into this list, we'll get their created by name and we'll get their created by time. So those things are quite important to us as we're tracking time through it. That's how we'll do it. We don't really have a title that we capture in there, so I actually set a default value on that column just to be submission. So I have something in there. Now, if you come to title and you go to column settings, you don't get a way to edit this and enter a default value. So what you'll have to do is come up to the cog, go to list settings, you'll click on title, and it's in here you can set a default value. So you kind of have to come into old SharePoint world to do it, but you can do it and it'll work absolutely fine. And if you're wondering, how did I know that the column name to put in my formula was code versus what the display name of the column was? Well, to ever find out what the actual name of the column is, come into your list settings, find the column. So in this case, it's level 1 code. So you click that, you'll come into the settings for the column. If I pull my browser down here, you see in the address bar right at the end, you'll see field equals, and I have code there. That tells me that is the value, the internal value that SharePoint wants for that column in order for us to reference it and do something with it. So you'll get it from there. So when you've done that, you've effectively done all we need to do on this list. I told you it's quite simple. And if you've never done it before, I know we could look at it quickly. If you want to create a form for this list, you say form. We could just say new form, and then you can add in a title, add a description, add in a logo if you want. And then to get rid of any of these columns here, you just untick them and it's gone. To get the link for this form, you just go to send form, copy link, and that's what you could put into a button web part or a quick links web part, whatever you want, and it's going to pop this form up for people when they click it. So coming back to site contents, our submissions level 2 and level 3, they're all the same, okay? Exact same thing. So I have level 2 code, same thing. I come in here, column settings, edit, more options. The answer happens to be Hawken. In this case, I did the exact same thing. The answer must equal code equals hawking, code equals hawking, or code equals hawking. Just trying to cover all my bases. And then we have the same message in there. So for your game, if you've got 1 level, 3 levels, 10 levels, you're going to want to create the same amount of submission lists, and you structure them the exact same and create the form for them. Very simple. So now let's look at the leaderboard list and how that's structured. So again, in site contents, we'll come into our leaderboard and we'll see it looks something like this. So there's a little bit more going on in here, okay? So let's break it down into what columns we have in here. Well, we have the standard title column, and that's going to hold the name of our person. Now, I should say the good thing about this list is we never update it ourselves. It's PowerAutomate that's going to update it, maintain it. So that's a good thing. So we have the title, right? That's going to be the person. Then we have the user, and that's just in here so we can show the picture of the user, really, which is nice. And then we have the progression of each of our levels. So this lets us know how someone is doing within the game once they've started. So These are the same type of column. They're all choice columns and they all have the same choices for consistency. So if we look at one of them, we'll go to column settings and edit, and we'll see what we have is level 1 cracked it, level 1 working on it, or level 1 not started. Okay, so we have the same for each of these. We've just changed level 1 to level 2, level 3. And again, it's PowerAutomate that's going to update that as we progress through the levels. So straightforward columns there. Then we have our level 2 start, level 3 start, and level 3 finish. So we're obviously tracking the time it takes people to complete the game, and that's eventually going to update the total time to complete the game. But what we're really actually tracking in this game, I suppose I'm cheating a little bit, we're going to basically start timing you from when you've completed level 1. So when you complete level 1, we effectively count that as level 2 start. And then when you've finished level 3 and submitted your answer, we get the level 3 finish. So it's really the time difference between the start here and the finish here that populates this again with PowerAutomate. Now we could track it from the very start of level 1, but we'd have to have something that someone submits in order to capture that timestamp. And I was just thinking, really, just to get people into the game, don't put anything in front of them to submit. So I'm really only capturing from level 2 to level 3, but it's going to be the same for everybody, right? So it's still, you know, even Stevens in terms of competition. Like I said, total time is updated through PowerAutomate. We basically calculate the difference in time, and I'll show you that when we get to it. And then we have another column in here, which is a choice column, and it's really got a choice of yes and a choice of no. And this is actually really important. Basically, this column is going to stop our last PowerAutomate flow from entering into an endless loop, because we'll see when we get to it. But basically, we have a PowerAutomate flow that's going to be triggered when this list is updated. And within that flow also updates the list item. So if we don't do something to stop that happening, it just keeps going in an endless loop and the world will explode. So this by default is set to no, but then we set it to yes when we've completed the total time, and it stops that one updating in the future. But again, I'll show you that when we get to PowerAutomate. So that's basically all we have in here. Okay, so they're the columns that we need, and we've two views in here. We've got the all items view, which is just basically what we'll keep an eye on, and then we have the page view. So this is what gets embedded on the page, and really that's just a cut down view of the list where we've hidden some of those columns. So we're really only showing the title of the person, we'll show their picture, and we'll show their level progression, and then the total time when they've completed the game. And that's what we show to them. And there's not too much else to show in here. If you're wondering how I formatted this, well, it's just column formatting. So column settings, and I go to format this column. You'll see in here, if you tick conditional formatting and you manage the rules, and you don't really set rules, you just have the show all value as. If you click this in here, go to more styles, then you can, you know, change the color, the size, the weight, all of that kind of stuff. So you do that in there. Absolutely fine. So yeah, that's board list. So we're almost there. So back in our blueprint, that's basically how we've got our leaderboard list, level 1, level 2, level 3, and our forms. So they're all accounted for. So next we'll have a quick look at our groups, and then we'll look at the PowerAutomate. So in terms of groups, really, there's 4 different groups in here. There's only 2 that we have to create. So we have the owners. Well, that's just going to be the site level permissions. Okay, so we'll be an owner and that'll apply everywhere. Then we have everyone, and that's typically the everyone except external users default group. So we add that as a visitor to this site. And then we have to create 2 additional security groups, and they're going to moderate access to level 2 and level 3 of our game, and we'll use them within PowerAutomate. And which also reminds me of a step I missed out in our submission lists. So if we come back over to the site and we look at, say, submission level 1, what we want to do is we want to remove the visitor access to this list. So to do that, you come up to the cog, you go to list settings, and you go into permissions for this list. And what you want to do is you want to select this here, escape visitors, so the visitors group of your site basically, and remove the user permission. And that will basically stop everyone from coming in and having a look at the list and what the code word is. So that's an important step. So do that for your submission lists. But back to these groups, okay? So like I said, we're just going to add ourselves into the owner group of the site, which you've probably done already. If you want it accessible to everybody in the company, basically you're going to go to the visitor group in your site and you're going to add in whoever you want. So to demonstrate here on the site where I have site access, well, in site owners, well, that's me, that's the boss level group. And then in site visitors, you'll probably use something like everyone except external users, or if you want a smaller audience, just put the relevant group in there in the visitors permission level, and then you're set. Now, when it comes to the security groups, again, there's going to be different ways to do this. You could use a Microsoft 365 group if you wanted to. I use security groups just because they're nice and clean. There's no baggage that comes with them. They're literally just the group itself. But to create these groups, you're going to need access to the admin center or by a coffee for someone who does. So in the 365 Admin Center, you're going to go to Teams and Groups. Then you're going to click on Active Teams and Groups. And then there's a tab over here called Security Groups. And you can see these are the 2 groups that I've created. Now, it's very easy to create a group. Basically, we're going to say add a security group, and then you're going to go through this wizard, give it a name, and that's effectively all you have to do. And you're done, and it'll be created. Now, you're not going to choose add a mail enabled security group. Reason being is that in PowerAutomate, it won't let us automatically add users to it. So security group is the way to go for this if you're using security groups. If you use Teams and Microsoft 365 groups, you should be fine. So once you've created these groups, we're almost there. We just have to then look at the PowerAutomate flows. So we're doing great, okay? We have the site, we've created the lists we need, we've created the groups that we need, we've created the forms that we need. The next key part of this is going to be the PowerAutomate flows. So there's 4 of them in total we need to create. 1 to handle level 1 submissions, level 2 submissions, level 3 submissions, and then 1 to calculate the total time on our leaderboard. So let's look at the level 1 submissions. So it's quite simple. If we look at it here, well, it's an automated flow. So if you're creating it, choose automated flow, and the trigger is when an item is created. So if I click on this, we'll see here that the site we're using, well, that's our home site, our Great Escape site, and the list within that site is our level 1 submission list. Okay, so when an item is created in this list, what we're asking it to do is we're saying, well, add the member. So the user principal name, that's the created by email, and that's what we get from here. So in terms of our dynamic content, we can see when an item is created, we want to get the created by email. Okay, so that's the user we're going to add into this group. Straightforward enough. And then once we've done that, what we want to do is we want to create an item on our leaderboard. It'll be the first entry for that user in the leaderboard. So this is where we update all the columns. So the title column, like I said, that's going to be the created by display name. So I'm getting all of this information from dynamic content and when an item is created. So we have all of that information about the user who submitted to the level 1 list. Okay, so I've got their display name coming in there. User claims, that's the people column. And basically we're popping in the created by email, the same thing we added into the group. And then we just need to update the choice values on the progression. So level 1 is going to be cracked it because they've solved level 1 in order to trigger this flow. Level 2 is going to be working on it because that's just naturally the next level they've moved on to. And level 3 is they've not started it yet. And then we're going to capture the level 2 start time. And that's going to be the created, right? So when the item was created, we take that time and we pop it in there. And we can leave everything else blank, okay? So really what we've done is we've created an entry in the leaderboard for that user. We've populated their name, their profile, and their progress, and then the time, okay? That's all we've done here. And then once we've done that, we wanted to post a message in a chat or channel, and we're going to post as the flow bot. We're going to post in a chat with the flow bot, and we're going to post it to, again, that created by email that we've used again and again. And then you can just pop in whatever message you want to say. So I have your 1 smart cookie. You were, of course, correct with gold. Now you must brave the time warp, and then we can give them a link to go to the level 2 site that they'll now have access to because they've been added to that group. Now you'll see when we look at the other sites, we add that group to the visitor's permission level within the site. That's how that works. And that's all you have to do. And I just cover my bases. So I also send them an email with the exact same message just to make sure they get it. And then the last thing I put in here, I don't know if this is needed, but I just terminate the flow with a status of succeeded. Now look, I'll be the first to say I am no PowerAutomate genius. I know enough to get by. So this is how I've done it. I've no doubt there's people watching this video who will be shouting at the screen that I've done something terrible. If I have, let me know. I'm always keen to learn myself. But that's how I did it. Seems to work okay. So big thumbs up there. So then if we look at the level 2 submission flow, that's the one I'm in here now. Same trigger, it's an automated flow. So in this case, we're looking at again, our home site, but we're looking at the level 2 submission list. So the trigger for this flow is when an item is created within this list. Then we have our add member to group column again. We're going to add them to the level 3 security group because level 2 submission flow kicks off when they've completed level 2. So we need to give them access to level 3. And this is how we do it. Again, we use that created by email to get them that. Then I have a get items action in here, which is basically going to look in the leaderboard and search for the user, okay? Because we want to update the value in that leaderboard. So I'm just gathering all the information from that existing list item. Okay, so basic what I did here is I'm looking on the Great Escape. I want to look within the leaderboard, and I'm going to search within that leaderboard, and I'm going to search for title equals created by display name. Okay, because remember in level 1 flow we updated the title with the user's display name, so this lets us target that user. Then the next action here, we have it for each, I don't know what you call it, for each bucket, let's say, and in here we've got an action for update the leaderboard. Now that's the name I've given it. It's just an update item action, and basically what we're saying is, again, we're going to look in the Great Escape home site, we're going to look in the leaderboard, we're going to choose the ID. The ID is what we will get from our get items. Now when you do that, it's going to add in this for each automatically. You don't have to add that in. Put this in, stick in the ID, and it's going to say, right, well, we were searching for things, so we better do what you want me to do for each of those things, but we're only going to find one thing, so it's fine. Again, I hope this is making sense. So what we're going to do is, when we looked for the item, we found the item, and the item that we found, we want to update it. So how we're updating it is, well, we're going to leave level 1 value at cracked it. We're going to update level 2 value to cracked it, because again, we've solved level 2, and then we're going to update level working on it. So this is just maintaining our leaderboard throughout the process. And we also want to capture the level 3 start time. So that's all we want to do on that. We're just going to update the leaderboard item with all that information, which is good. And then we have the same things again that we had in the last one. We're going to post a message in a channel. Again, we're posting it to the person who submitted up here. And then we're going to say, you of course got it right, and then go to the next level essentially. And we'll send the email again and we'll terminate. And that's effectively all we're doing in this flow. And then into our level 3 submission flow. So that's this one here. Again, it's quite simple. Same trigger when an item is created, but this time we're looking at the level 3 submission list. What we're going to do is get items. So again, we're going to search the leaderboard for the title of the person who created the item. So we're going to search for the person who created the item. So title equals created by display name, etc., etc. We get this for each automatically coming in when we add in this action and we put in the ID. We'll automatically get a for each, but don't worry about that. And then again, all we're just doing was we're kind of closing things off. We're updating all of the values to cracked it, which is great. And then we're also going to populate the level 3 finish time. We don't need to add them to another group because this is the last level. There's no group to add them to for a level 4. If you did, you would just be repeating the process that we did in level 2. And then we're going to post a message in the chat. Say you're one smart cookie, check your score on the leaderboard, and maybe spell it right would be a good start. So that's what you're going to do there. Send the email again and terminate. So simple enough flow. All these flows are very simple really, which kind of works in our favor because I'm a simple person when it comes to PowerAutomate. So that worked fine. And then the last flow that we have to build is the final update to the leaderboard to calculate that total time. So the way it works is it's a different trigger. So now we're going to have when an item or a file is modified, and we're going to point it at the leaderboard. So we've been updating the leaderboard all this time, okay? So this flow kind of triggers every time we've updated it, but we don't want it to do anything until we know they've finished the game effectively. So that's why we add in a condition in here, okay? So if I click into here, we'll see what the condition is. So basically, we're going to know something has been updated. That triggers this flow. And the very next thing it does is, well, it answers the question, well, should I do anything else? And the conditions that, let it know to do something versus not is this in here. So basically, we're looking for the level 3 value is equal to cracked it. So, only calculate at the time when they finished level 3. And then here's that column that I put in for the stop update value, and I've set that to no. So when it's set to no, the flow knows that it's okay to run. And that's why we have no as the default value on that column. But if I come down to what actually is meant to happen if all of this is okay, I'll drop it down. Well, basically, we're going to compose. That's where we're going to get the total time. But just to finish off explaining this, we will then also update an item, okay? So what we're going to update is the total time, which we'll get from here, which I'll come back to in a sec. But we're going to also update the stop update value to yes, okay? If we didn't have this in here and we didn't have it with the condition, this is going to trigger when it's updated, okay? That's fine. And then we update it again, And then that's automatically going to trigger this again, which will come down here, update this again and trigger. And it's just going to be that endless loop that I got a surprise when I got an email saying you've been running your flow for days on end. So don't do that. Put in this little check to stop it updating and you'll be good as gold. But how did we get this total time? So if we come in here, it's a compose action. And what we've used is a function to calculate the time. And it's quite simple really. So if I click into here, the way this works is, well, it's better just to show you by doing rather than try and explain this. So if I created another one, I come in here and I type in compose. And then in inputs, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to choose the function value. So I'll select that. And in here, I'm going to search for date diff. Okay. So that's going to be a date difference, which basically calculates the difference between two dates. So I'm going to select that. So we get that in here. And then I'm going to click on dynamic content. Take out my search term here and I'm going to type in level. Okay, so basically I'm calculating the difference in time between when we start at level 2, I'll put in a comma, and then I'll say when we finished level 3. And that's the function that I have in there, and I just say add, and now that's in there and we have it as a compose action. So I'll just delete that one because I don't need two of them. So that compose now contains the difference in time or the duration it took us to finish the game. And that's why when we have update item in the total time, we're just popping in the value from this compose. So if I hit the dynamic content, we'd see compose there, and the outputs of this, so the calculated duration, is what we pop into here. And that's effectively it done. And then, like I said, we populate this to yes to cancel out the flow essentially. And that's effectively it. So back in here to our solution blueprint, we've handled our lists, we've handled our flows, we've handled our groups. So now let's have a look at building these pages, the front end pages. So if we come over to our site, this is the landing page. So your landing page is going to be different than my landing page. So I'm not going to go too much into it, but there is one part of this which is pretty nice, and it's actually what got the SharePoint Hack award, right? So if we come down the page, so again, this is just going to be up to you and how you want to position your game. I've put stuff in here like, you know, key points of the game, a couple of metrics that I made up, to be honest, how the game works. But when we come down here and we're advertising the level, so we've got level 1, which is the Amazon, where people begin the challenge. Then we've got level 2, which is the time warp, and we have no way to get to it in here. There's no link to it. All we have is unlock level 1 to get access, and similar to unlock level 2. That's the bit I want to show you. So I'll pop it into edit mode, and we can see the way I've actually done that here is it's flexible sections that lets me do this. So basically what we have here is we have two web parts on top of each other. Okay, so if I move this one over here, we see that this is the quick links web part and this is a text web part. So we want the text web part to sit underneath the quick links web part. So you could put whatever you want in here, okay? I just put in unlock at level 1 and threw in an emoji lock symbol. And then I created the quick links web part. And if we come to the settings on the link, we can see, well, we can see through that icon that it's audience targeted. So I have it audience targeted to my level 2 group. So you don't see this link unless you've completed level 1 and our flow put you into the level 2 group. So it just means that when we stick this web part over here, this is going to block this, basically sit on top of it, obscure it, hide it when you have access to it. And when you don't have access to it, you won't see the link, therefore you'll see the text. Now when you're positioning this, you can see here, well, Dan, why don't you have this actually sitting on top of here? Well, when I republish the page, this extra space up here will disappear. So just position it so that the top of the web part is on top of this. And then when I republish it, it would effectively be on top of that. So that's all I did there. I did the same for down here, except this link in here is audience targeted to level 3. That's it. That's all I did to hide that. You can also do the same thing. So if I republish this page for a second, you'll see here that in the navigation I have up here, if I edit it, you'll see I've also audience targeted a level 2 and level 3 link. So if I come in here and edit, it means that people only see this link when they're in the group that gives them access to it. And that's basically how we're moderating, you know, who can see what on this page. Everything else is just fluff, really, I suppose. So if we come in here, I mean, this is an image web part, which is in a flexible section. It's all built with flexible sections, to be honest. Text web part, Text web part, that's just an image web part that has a link going with it. I've said this in previous videos. If you're putting images on the page and you don't want them to be clickable, just go to the settings of the image itself, mark it as decorative, and then people can't interact with it. So that's a nice little touch, something to remember. Down here, the way I made this look like it's overlapping this top section, well, it's actually just two different sections. I've just added in a background section here, which is kind of half of it looks like this and the other half is white, and then this is an additional image that I popped in here to make it look like this is a tab sitting on top of it. That's all that is, nothing too major going on there. So that's effectively that page, so I'll republish. And then if we look at the leaderboard page, which is mercilessly simple, I'll pop in here, and all I've done on this page, if I pop it into edit mode, is again we have a flexible section where I've just used my image again. I've put a section background in here. This is a text web part. This crown was a bit overkill, to be honest, but that's a text web part where I used the crown emoji, and then I tried to position it on top of the O, but I couldn't really get the alignment right. But it's meant to look like the O is wearing a crown for the leader. And then in here I've just added the list web part, and I've chosen the page view that we created. Auto size, hide command bar, hide see all button, and that's effectively it. That's all this page is. So as people start to enter your game and complete it, they'll be added in here, and then we'll see them on the time. And it's simple as that, really. So all that effectively covers this part of the blueprint, which is really the mechanics of the game. It's how it works. We'll have a quick look at our level 1, level 2, level 3 site, but there's basically not a whole lot to them. So now looking at our individual level sites, remember I created an individual site per level of the game so I could give it its own theme color, and also to keep the permission management as simple as possible. So if we look over here, this is our first level, Amazon level 1, and basically, well, this is straightforward. All I'm using on this whole site is just the landing page, but you could of course make your puzzles a lot more intricate within a site if you wanted to, absolutely. But let me just tell you what this is, right? So we have here, guiding hands once traced my lines, yet wisdom sees where none have eyes, life's breath in veins runs thin and true, and echoes call where none pursue. That's the clue that we're going to give people. So the way I've structured each of my puzzles is I've got a persona, somebody here who's given a written clue basically, and then we have the puzzle to solve. So I've put in 3 individual images here, and I'm trying to tell people this is the clue, which is related to this, which is going to eventually give you your answer. So the way to solve this one really is guiding hands once traced my lines. Well, that relates to a globe. Yet wisdom sees where none have eyes. That relates to an owl. Life's breath in veins runs thin and true. That relates to a leaf. And then echoes call where none pursue, and that relates to a drum. So to solve this riddle, you basically put the images in the order of the poem, I suppose you call it, here, and it's the first letter for each image gives you your answer. So the answer would be gold. So G, O, L, and D. Okay, that's the riddle, that's the puzzle. And then in the submit your code, well, remember when we created the form on our level 1 submission list and we got the link to it? That's what we put in here in this quick links web part. And when someone clicks it, they get the form, and that's where we had our valid the answer. So if I put the page into edit mode just really quickly so you can see it, again, it's all built with flexible sections. So image, text, image, image. There's a speech bubble image and then text and that, but I've grouped things together. And then I've got an image here, and then the background is obviously dark. It's the same here in terms of flexible sections, image, 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 image. That's an image, that's an image. This is quick links, where again, I've popped in the link to take me to the form. To make it look all dark and mysterious, all I did was create a theme on the site. So up in the cog, you're gonna go to site branding new. That's the theme I created here for the Amazon. You'll just create a new theme. And basically when I did in here, I set the primary color to that green color, text color was set to white, background was set to black or a shade of black, and then I just toggled it to a dark theme so SharePoint knows that I'm intending to use this as a dark theme. That's all I really did on that, and it all kind of blended in nicely when it was all in a dark mode. I created the images to kind of match in with it. And then in practical terms for site access, Well, in here, you're obviously going to be the owner of the site. I am in here. But for site visitors, again, because this is the first level and we want everyone to have access to it, I've put in the everyone except external users group so everybody can come into it. And then looking at the second level in here, which is our time warp level, all very much the same, flexible sections where I've got the different web parts sitting on top of each other. And in this one, riddle is letters and numbers side by side, a hidden code you must divide, count the steps from A to Z, the key lies where the symbols wed. Yeah, I don't know, ChatGPT gave me that one. But basically the way you solve this is each number within the time here, so 8, 1, 23, 11, 9, 14, 7, and 0, they relate to letters in the alphabet and their position. So 8 would be the 8th letter in the alphabet, 1 would be the first letter, so on and so forth, and that will spell out hawking. Now I put a text web part behind all of this with all of the letters in the name Hawking, I suppose, as another clue, but that's effectively how you solve that. So again, submit your code launches the form to submit to our level 2 submission list. And again, we're going to validate the answer, that kind of thing again. When it comes into access to the site, slightly different this time. Well, we're still going to be an owner of our site, but for site visitors, it's that group, our level 2 group. So again, when you solve level 1 successfully, PowerAutomate pops you into this group, which gives you access to this site and then makes the various links that we had around the place visible. That's kind of how that works. And then if we come on to level 3, again, a new site, a new puzzle, a new color team, and a new riddle. I think I explained this one in the hackathon video, but essentially what I'm saying is from blazing heat to icy cold, our ancient path is long and old. Follow the line from near to far and find your answer among the stars. And the riddle is, well, we've just got loads of planets in here, and then we've got all these random words, but some of the words are clickable or selectable. So if I select them, it ends up filtering this list in here. And I basically need to find the right word that filters it so that the planets align as they do in our solar system. A little bit nerdy, but that's how I did it. What sits behind this, and you can see here from the blueprint, if I zoom in a little bit, we've got the home page, and then we've got 2 lists. One is the planets, so that's all the planets you're seeing, and then we use dynamic filtering to sort it based on those words. So if I pop the page into edit mode, you can see here flexible sections are just coming in a tree everywhere. Each one of these words is a text web part that I randomly positioned, but sitting behind it is actually a list web part, and that's where I'm showing my code filter gallery in there. So it's just basically disguised or obscured with these text web parts sitting above it. And then this here is just another image that I pop behind just to really call attention to it. But I won't go too far into it. I mean, they're just the riddles I came up with. I'm sure you'll probably come up with something a little bit more relevant to your organization or team that you're basing your games around. So that's effectively it. I'm wrecked after recording that video. It's been about 10 million takes to get it right. No joke. But if you did last this long, congratulations, you deserve an award yourself. But look, give it a go. It's really just a model. I'm sure there's things that you could improve on it. Well, I've no doubt there's things that you'll improve on it, whether it's the flows or the game design or the look and feel. You know, it's really just a new way to look at SharePoint and a new thing to try, I suppose. I think it would work pretty well. I'm excited to do it in a real world setting myself and see what the uptake is on it. I'll keep you posted on how that goes. So nothing else really to say that if you like the video, please give it a like. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe, because I've got a couple of more crazy plans up my silky sleeves to come. So yeah, until next time, thanks for bearing with me, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.